All right, so we're going deep on 529 college savings plans today. And wow, you've really pulled together a lot of research here. I see YouTube videos from like every financial advisor out there and even some stuff from Yahoo Finance. You're really trying to get to the bottom of these 529s, huh?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of talk about them. And some people are even wondering if they're really still the best way to save for education these days. I mean, there are so many other options now.
Right, right. Well, let's start with the basics, I guess. I saw one expert compared 529s to a Roth IRA, but like for education. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good analogy, at least when it comes to the taxes. Just like a Roth IRA, you don't get to deduct your contributions right away, but all the money you make inside the account, that all grows tax deferred. And then when you take the money out to pay for, qualified education expenses, it's completely tax-free, well, federally at least.
So that means like tuition room and board, even textbooks would all be tax-free. That's pretty amazing. But I'm guessing there's got to be some kind of limit, right? It can't be unlimited.
You're right about that. There are some things to keep in mind with gift taxes. Like right now, you can give up to $17,000 per year per beneficiary without any gift tax issues. And you can even do this thing called superfunding, where you put in like 5 years worth of contributions all at once. But if you go over those limits, then yeah, you might have to pay some gift taxes. So it's definitely something to watch out for.
Gotcha. So it pays to plan ahead. And speaking of planning, I noticed you can actually choose a 529 plan from any state. Like you don't have to stick with your own state's plan. Is that something worth looking into, or am I just overthinking things?
Oh, no, it's definitely a good idea to compare plans from different states. They're not all created equal. Some have better investment options than others. Some have lower fees and things like that. So yeah, don't just assume your state's plan is the best one out there. It's worth doing a little research.
Makes sense. Now, what about these target date funds I keep hearing about? It seems like they're pretty popular with 529s, but do they really make sense? Like, I get the idea that you start off aggressive with stocks and then gradually shift to bonds as the kid gets closer to college. But wouldn't I have more control and maybe even earn more if I just, picked my own investments?
That's a really good question, and there's no easy answer. I mean, target date funds are definitely convenient, right? You just pick one based on when your kid is supposed to start college, and then you just let it do its thing. It's pretty hands-off. But yeah, if you're comfortable managing your own investments and you want more control over what's in your portfolio, then maybe building your own portfolio within the 529 would make more sense for you.
Okay, so it really depends on your own situation and how hands-on you want to be. Now, I have to ask about this whole thing with bond funds. I saw some experts saying that even though bonds are supposed to be safe, bond funds inside 529s can actually lose money. How is that even possible?
Yeah, that's a little tricky. It all comes down to the difference between like a single bond and a bond fund. See, when you buy an individual bond, you're basically loaning money to someone like a company or the government. And as long as they don't go bankrupt, you'll get your money back when the bond matures. But a bond fund, it's different. It holds a bunch of different bonds, and the value of the fund can go up or down depending on things like interest rates, what's happening in the economy.
So even though bonds themselves are pretty low risk, the bond fund could still lose money. That seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, it can be confusing. And that's why some people think it might be safer to just buy individual bonds, especially in a 529 where you know exactly when you're going to need the money. But of course, picking and managing individual bonds, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, this is definitely getting more complicated than I thought. And then there's this whole other question of, is college even the right path anymore for everyone? I mean, enrollment's down, tuition costs are crazy high. Maybe a 529 isn't the no-brainer it used to be.
That's the big debate, isn't it? Things are definitely changing. I mean, the pandemic really shook things up. People had to rethink the whole idea of going to a physical campus. And a lot of them started to wonder if it was really worth it. And then there's the whole student loan crisis, which has made people really wary of taking on tons of debt for a degree that might not even lead to a good-paying job.
So, okay, we've got this new rule where you can basically roll over your 529 money into a Roth IRA if your kid doesn't use it all for college. That's pretty huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like getting a 2-for-1 deal. But I bet there are a ton of rules and restrictions around this thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's not as simple as just transferring the money over. Like the 529 account has to be at least 15 years old for one thing.
Yeah.
And it can only have had one beneficiary the whole time. And then there's a limit on how much you can roll over. It's $35,000 lifetime maximum.
Okay, so there are some caps.
Yeah. And each year, you can only roll over up to the regular Roth IRA contribution limit. So for 2024, that's $7,000 or $8,000 if you're 50 or older.
Okay, so you can't just like dump your entire 529 balance into a Roth IRA all at once. You have to spread it out.
Right. It definitely takes some planning. But here's the really interesting part. Those income limits that usually apply to Roth IRA contributions, where if you make too much money, you can't contribute, well, those don't apply to these rollovers.
Wait, really? So even if I'm making a ton of money, I can still roll over my 529 funds into a Roth IRA. That changes everything. I mean, now it's like a 529 isn't just for college anymore. It's like a secret weapon for retirement savings, too.
That's exactly what a lot of people are saying. This new rule has really made people rethink how they look at 529s. It's not just about paying for college anymore. It's about long-term financial planning.
It really is a game changer, huh? But it kind of brings us back to that question we were talking about before. Is traditional college even the right path for everyone anymore? Like we said, enrollments are down, and there are all these alternatives popping up like coding boot camps and things like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a trend that we're seeing. And I think the pandemic really accelerated things. Suddenly everyone was forced to learn online, and it made a lot of people wonder if being on a physical campus was really all that important. Plus, there's that whole student loan thing hanging over everyone's head. People are a lot more hesitant to take on a mountain of debt for a degree that might not even get them a good job.
It's like that story about Dave Ramsey and the doctor's diploma, right? Like, do you really care where your doctor went to medical school as long as they're good at what they do?
Exactly. It really makes you question the whole idea that you need a fancy degree from a big-name school to be successful. These days, skills and experience and just, continuously learning those things are becoming more and more important.
So what does all this mean for 529s? Are they becoming obsolete? If fewer people are going to college, what's the point?
Well, I don't think they're going away anytime soon. Remember, 529s are pretty flexible. You can use them for all sorts of qualified educational expenses. It doesn't have to be a 4-year college. So even if your kid decides to go to trade school or do some kind of online certification program or even, a registered apprenticeship, you can still use the 529 money to pay for it.
Oh, okay. So it's not just about college. It's about investing in education and training, however that looks. But didn't some of the experts say that there are other ways to save for those kinds of things that might be even better than a 529? Like, what about those custodial accounts?
Yeah, those are definitely an option. And they have some advantages. Like with a custodial account, you have a lot more freedom to invest the money however you want. You're not limited to the choices that are inside a 529 plan. But there are some downsides too. Like the earnings are taxed at the child's tax rate, which could be higher than yours. And you don't get those tax-free withdrawals for education expenses.
So basically, with a custodial account, you get more control over the investments, but you might end up paying more in taxes later.
Yeah.
Whereas a 529 gives you those tax benefits, but you don't have as much flexibility.
Yep. That's pretty much the trade-off. And, it really just comes down to your own situation. How much risk are you comfortable with? How much do you value those tax breaks? How important is it for you to have control over the investments? There's no right or wrong answer.
That's where it's really helpful to hear from all these different experts with different opinions. Like Dave Ramsey, he's a big fan of using those tax-advantaged accounts like 529s, right? I think he even said that if you try to split your money between a 529 and a custodial account early on, you're actually hurting yourself in the long run.
Yeah, his point is that you want to maximize those tax benefits as much as possible. So he says put as much as you can into the 529 first and let that money grow tax-free. That way you'll come out ahead in the end.
So it's kind of like playing the long game, huh? With the 529, you're thinking about the big picture and how to make the most of those tax breaks over time.
Exactly. But again, it's not the only way to do things. If you need the money sooner or if you really want to be in control of the investments, then a custodial account might be a better fit.
Man, this is a lot to think about. We started out just trying to figure out what a 529 is, and now we're talking about like the whole future of education and the job market and even retirement planning.
Well, that's kind of the point of a deep dive, right? We're trying to look at things from all angles and connect the dots. It's not just about getting the surface level information. It's about really understanding how everything fits together.
And ultimately, it's all about you, the listener. I mean, you're the one who brought us all this research. You're the one who's really trying to figure this stuff out. So what are you thinking? What's standing out to you so far? What are your big takeaways?
It's kind of wild how much ground we covered just talking about 529s. I mean, we started with, just the basics of what they are, but now we're talking about like the whole future of education and how the job market is changing and even like retirement planning.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It really shows you how all these things are connected though, right? Like education isn't just about learning stuff. It's also about, setting yourself up for the future. And that includes like your career and your finances. It's all tied together.
For sure. And I think this deep dive did a really good job of showing just how complicated these decisions can be. Like, we saw arguments for and against 529s. We talked about other options like custodial accounts, and then there's that whole Roth IRA rollover thing, which is like a total game changer.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in. And it's easy to get overwhelmed when you have so much information to process. But I think that's where critical thinking comes in. It's not about finding the one right answer because there isn't one. It's more about weighing the pros and cons, looking at your own personal situation, and then making a decision that feels right for you and your goals.
Exactly. There's no magic formula that works for everyone. And that's why it's so important to hear from different perspectives like we did with all this research you found. It helps you see the bigger picture.
Absolutely. The more viewpoints you're exposed to, the better. It challenges you to question your assumptions, and it helps you understand the nuances of a topic. And ultimately, that leads to making better decisions.
So as we wrap up this whole deep dive, what would you say is like the biggest takeaway for our listener? What's the one thing you want them to remember about 529 plans?
I think the main thing to remember is that 529s are changing. They're not just for college anymore. Now, with that Roth IRA rollover, they've become a much more flexible tool that you can use for like your whole financial plan, not just for education.
Yeah, that really is a game changer. It makes 529s relevant to way more people, even people who aren't sure if they want to send their kids to a traditional four-year college.
Exactly. And even if you're thinking about those alternative paths like trade schools or online programs, 529s can still be a good option because they're so flexible and you get those tax benefits.
So it's not just about deciding yes or no on a 529. It's about figuring out how a 529 fits into your overall financial plan and how you can use it to reach your goals, whatever those goals might be.
Right. It requires a bit of a shift in mindset. We have to stop thinking of 529s as just a college savings account and start seeing them as this multi-purpose tool that can help you build a strong financial future.
This whole deep dive has really made me think differently about 529s.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually considering opening one myself, even though my kids are still pretty young.
That's awesome. That's what it's all about. Knowledge is power, and when you take the time to really explore a topic like we did here, it can open up all sorts of new possibilities.
Well said. All right, well, I think that about wraps up our 529 deep dive. But like we said, the conversation doesn't end here. Hopefully this gave you, our listener, all the info you need to keep learning and make the best decision for you and your family.
And don't forget, things are always changing. New rules come out, trends shift, new opportunities pop up all the time. So stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Awesome advice. Thanks for joining me on this journey. It's been a blast diving deep with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep on diving deep.